Hello, welcome to In the Court of the Wenton Knave. Here we are with Book of Talisyn. Second album. The title refers to a book of medieval poems. The story goes it was recorded in August 1968. Shades of Deep Purple had just been recorded. It was just a couple of months before. So that's the thing that, you know, how fast they made 3 albums when they weren't really together that long. But actually, I think some of it was finished in October of that year, so it wasn't right after. They did most of it right after, and then they had to finish it off. It may well have been River Deep Mountain High, I think, had to be recorded in October, just before they flew to the US. So Book of Talisyn. While it doesn't have a hush, it's a much better album in every sense. The writing and the performance. The production has moved up a notch as well. The sound of it is much better, particularly though their own songs. That's the thing. There's some 4 really strong self-penned songs on here. Feels very proggy, or at least their own songs sound very proggy. It's still Austin Powers music. Very much so. You've got things like Exposition, which are very bombastic, prog-like overtures in a sense. That's the Purple thing, So their own songs are the highlight here, not the covers, unlike the first album. Shield and Anthem, of their time, but absolutely top drawer stuff, really cool. Fantastic examples of what that is, proto-prog, if you like. And some of it is quite elaborate. I do think, making 2 albums in such a short space of time does suggest the first 2 should be 1 album, really. Maybe with Hush and then all their own songs, and then maybe the covers as B-sides or just singles. Having said that, River Deep Mountain High is pretty epic. That's the really good one, I think. So Listen, Learn, Read On is the first song. That's where the album title comes from, and there's bits of stuff from the Book of Talisyn in there, I think, or it's about it. Very 60s. It is striking how bass-driven it all is. It's not just Hush that's bass-driven. That's just part of the way they were writing, probably because of Hush. But it's interesting, obviously, seeing as they replaced the bass player. And then we got Wring That Neck. We all know Wring That Neck. Out-and-out classic. Psychedelic Parkinson theme tune. If you don't know what Parkinson is, it's a UK chat show, actually. But with great music, genuinely. So this is like a psychedelic version of that, but with guitar. Perfect for Pacey's Swing Roots. Obviously, that was used later on. That must have been what it inspired it. But it's actually written by Ritchie and Nick Simper. I have to say, I still don't think that the Blackmore thing is formed yet. He's still finding his feet. He's been around for a long time, but he was a rock and roll guitarist, and it's a kind of hired gun thing to sort of impress in short bursts and play riffs. And he's trying to figure out what to do in a sort of psychedelic proto-prog band. So I think the technique is there, but he doesn't know what to do. Some of it is nervous. The playing on here is definitely better than the first album, but I think there's a nervousness. I don't think he quite knows what to do. That's probably controversial. I would think that's controversial. It's got Wring That Neck on it, but if you were going to listen to a version of Wring That Neck, it would not be the album version, which is the worst version of the song. And John Peel agreed. Now, obviously, John Peel hates everything after the first album. He loved the first album and then suddenly hated them because they were successful. But that's just John Peel. It was called Hard Road in the US. It was not called Wring That Neck, because Wring That Neck is too violent. So obviously the record producers didn't know what that meant. Then you've got Kentucky Woman. Nice cover version. That was the single. It's not as good as Hush. It's still pretty good, and there's some great playing on it. Again, particularly from Pacey. This has probably got more of the Purple sound on it, aside from John. But maybe it's kind of too heavy. Maybe that was the thing. That was the problem. That Hush is this big pop single, and they're not quite that kind of band. Maybe. They did try some others around the same time. They tried Glory Road by Neil Diamond. There are no recordings. Right, so then, after Kentucky Woman, you've got the obligatory classical theme stuck onto a classic rock song. So Exposition is actually Tchaikovsky. And then not a great version of a classic Beatles song, We Can Work It Out. Now, I don't like Help either. Everybody likes the version of Help. So, don't know. But yeah, for me, that version of We Can Work It Out is kind of horrible, actually. But I think we then turned the record over. We got Shield. That's the one people tend to talk about. Apart from Wring That Neck, that one. It's got a bit of everything. You got a pacey swing beat, weird Blackmore guitar melody, and John Lord being John Lord, because that bit is fully formed. You know, glorious. And that main rhythm is really bass driven. It must have come out of a jam where that was what the bass player was doing, and it was all built around it. And fantastic use of light and shade. Still sounds Austin Powers like, but he's really good. It really is proto prog. You know, if you made an album of where did prog come from, Shield should be on that album. You know, so people who maybe don't like Deep Purple but like prog, you should at the very least hear Shield, but more of that on the next studio album. There is an instrumental which isn't on the album called Playground. Supposedly Rod Evans just couldn't figure out what to sing on it, and that's why they didn't use Playground. But it is pretty much the Hush bass rhythm with the Blackmore melody from Shield. Essentially, that's what it is. Weirdly, I know Playground more than the rest of the album because it's on the Richie Blackmore Rock Profile, which is quite an old compilation. As if by magic they've appeared in my hands. I think this was actually Richie Blackmore Rock Profile Volumes 1 and 2. I think these are actually from the 80s, so they would have been on vinyl, I think. But they're quite long, so maybe double vinyls. Not sure, but yeah, one of the albums on one of these is Playground on Volume 1. So I know this very well, this stuff. And I didn't buy the Book of Talisyn. It was the last old studio album I didn't have. I waited until the remasters in 2000, so it was the last one, the album that wasn't new that I didn't have. So I don't know it as well as the others. So that's interesting. Yeah, so that's Playground. Interesting, maybe. Then we got Anthem, which is also great. 60s ballad is the best way to put it. And compared to something like One More Rainy Day, this is much better. And it's got this string middle section and then a guitar solo over the strings, which is great. In terms of penultimate tracks, that's a really good one. It is great. And the album ends with the obligatory over-the-top classical thing stuck on a classic song. But I think this is the best one. River Deep Mountain High. I think is great. You've got also Sprat the Zarathustra. I don't know how to pronounce it. Stuck onto River Deep Mountain High, and it is really bombastic. And it is a bit of a gimmick to do that because it's now the thing they're doing, which they nicked from Vanilla Fudge. But that's the one. That's the best one, and was released as a single to coincide with the tour, actually. So yeah, second album in such a small space of time. That was kind of normal for the time. Obviously, the Beatles went that fast. We also know, overwork is what led to the breakup of the band. Really, that's where the problem started. But Deep Purple Mark 1 is something that never quite reached its potential. Never quite happened, sort of, until we review that third studio album, maybe. But that's not next week. Well, sorry, not next week. Next episode. But that's not next episode, because next episode is the Inglewood Forum, October the 18th, 1968. And I'll be talking about that one. So yeah, that's recommended, definitely. Enjoy.